played another PlayStation 4 game on my PS5, and this is a big one. So I want to talk about the Order 1886, is it called? I have it written down here, but I think I miswrote it down. So the Order came out like 10 years ago. Literally, it was one of the first PlayStation 4 games, and it got bad reviews. But I remember seeing over the years people saying it was unfairly judged, and like people seemed to like it. And I remember thinking it looked pretty cool at the time, and I ended up finding it on sale years ago. Like before the pandemic, I bought it for like literally like $5, I think. And it just sat on my PlayStation. I never had the urge to play it. But again, with the PlayStation 5, I didn't have any games. I didn't buy Final Fantasy yet. I still haven't. I haven't bought any actual games for it. It's just sitting there. And I was like, well, I'll use this as an opportunity to play through my old PlayStation 4 games. So the Order was one of the ones I wanted to make myself play. And so I knew it was short. And so I thought, you know what, I'll put that in and get that over with. And man, I'm so glad I played this game, The Order 1886. It is, first off, you would not believe this game came out 10 years ago. It visually looks better than most modern games. It looks amazing. There is so much detail. There is so much, the art, the environments. It looks so like everything looks so good. It takes place in like an alternate history. Think of like in the 1800s London, but if it's still like somewhat not modern, but like, you know, in those gentlemanly days, but with King Arthur type characters. So like you have the Knights of the Round Table, but it's not medieval times. It's like we have guns and stuff, and people are still named after those characters, and they all have that Knights of the Round type element to them. And so the setting and the dressing of the game is really interesting. I really like this take on the King Arthur fable in a sense, and how they've grounded it in reality and humanized it, and how all the people are named certain things and the weapons are named certain things. It all flows surprisingly well, and it all looks incredible. Like the lighting, the flame, like everything, little flames, the buildings, the characters, the animations when they're talking. I cannot believe it. Like you would not, if I showed you this game, you would have no idea that it came out 10 years ago. It looks truly better than most games that I've seen. Like, I'm not joking. It looks better than most next-gen games. It is nuts. And it does a lot of cool things. I even took note of it. So one of the things I want to talk about was it sounds weird, but the nose breathing. So there's cutscenes where like people are talking, and you can actually physically hear when the character is breathing through their nose. And sometimes they're just close to the camera, and there's something intense is happening. You can hear them breathing, and that's when I realized, I was like, I don't think there's that many games that actually, because they usually want the audio to be crisp and clean for the dialogue, but they actually had the actors sit there like breathing. Because I was like trying to think, do other games have breathing? Like I'm sure The Last of Us does. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure like those AAA games do, but like I can't think of that many games, and I don't know any game that has nose breathing. And it really added a lot to the scenes. It made them feel that small detail of a character breathing through their nose as opposed to their mouth. It added so much detail. I always picked up on it, and I was always like, oh, that's so cool. It really did make things feel way more realistic. The fire, the flames, there's like these candles in the game, or these little flames that look more real than I've ever seen in any other game, to the point where, you know, that little, like, if you're sitting by a fire and you're just staring at it in real life, you kind of get lost in yourself. You sort of get hypnotized by it. This is the only game where that actually happened to me, where I'm like, oh, I could realistically just stare at this fake fire, and I could be transported and hypnotized and just lose myself in the moment of just being drawn into this flame. It was really cool. the lighting in the game, the flame, all that stuff. It looks incredible. I cannot talk highly enough about the graphics. It's just unreal. And then little details like when you search cupboards and things like that. Like most games, I mean, a lot of games you won't even have any animation. You just walk up to a desk and like press the search button and nothing will happen. Some games, if like a Last of Us that do pay attention to details, you'll actually open up the cupboard. But this game, like if you were searching a bookshelf, the character's hand actually moves through the individual books and like they fall over, and like if you open a drawer, there'll be paper that moves inside the drawer, and the character will actually move the paper out of the way and look. It was just such a really cool. There was only like 3 or 4 canned animations for those moments, but that little extra touch went such a long way to making everything feel so much more believable and lived in. Everything just felt so much more realistic as a result of all these little touches, like the nose breathing and the way the characters search various things like bookshelves and drawers and things like that. It was really cool. The other thing I liked about the game, so the game starts off really in a really interesting way as well. It just does everything that I like games for. Like it starts off with an intriguing moment where you're playing this character who you don't know anything about, and he's being held prisoner and his head is being dunked in water, and it's a very captivating way to start a game. You're being chased by these people, and then it kind of you eventually, I won't say anything, but yeah, you eventually kind of get to a point that the game now goes back in time, like a month. I forget how much time, like a month or two, and then the whole game is kind of going back up into leading into what that moment is. Like, why were you being held a prisoner, kind of thing. So it goes up to the events leading to that moment, and the cool thing is that the game does have. Well, I'll keep talking about the actual pacing. So the game starts off really well with an engaging story point that I'm actually interested in exploring. I want to know how I got there. I want to know why I got there. And because the people that are sort of chasing you find out very quickly in the first chapter, like, oh, these are actually my people. So it's like, okay, what happens in between now and then that makes all this stuff go crazy? So the story gripped me right away. The characters grip me right away. Every character is really well done in terms of voice acting. But every character is interesting. I found every character was interesting. I was like, oh man, like this could be a TV show, and every character would be interesting to explore even more so. I felt like they had a really good job at building personalities in a quick way for all the side characters as well. And everyone had really cool accents, and there's a diverse amount of characters. Everyone was different. And I liked every character, and everyone had interesting, like flaws or quirks and motivations. And, the gameplay itself is kind of, I would probably compare it to like a Gears of War type game, where it's like you are spending a lot of time in cover and like shoot. It's an action game. Like you are shooting bad guys and going undercover all the time. And I would say that's probably the biggest complaint, but it's not even a complaint for me necessarily, is that the gameplay itself it's not new and it's not that deep, but I liked it. It didn't get the game is short enough that it was, and they give you enough variety in things that overall I stayed engaged. But I think a lot of people might want extra stuff. Like I feel like a lot of people just always want like leveling up and increasing the upgrades and making your weapons better. I don't really. I find that stuff kind of boring now and tedious. I've just done it so many times that I would rather just have. I like how this game just gave you different weapons, and like you didn't have to spend your time through skill trees and that kind of thing. Is just pretty basic. It's like, here's a gun, shoot it, cool. But the thing I like the most, well, not the most, but another thing that was such a Cooper type of thing was that they do introduce this story component in the game, in that like lycans, werewolves, they exist, and so like humans are transforming into these lichens. And usually that would be a turnoff for me. I don't really like werewolves and humans transforming into things in games. It always comes off a little cheesy, but the reason that I liked it in this game was that it was very much it wasn't the focus of the game. I feel like most games would really focus hard on that element, and they would become this like main enemy of the game, and you would fight them all the time. This game showed and did something that very few games do, which is restraint. The lichens are introduced pretty far into the game, and then you really only fight them like 2 or 3 times. Like, it's very rare, and so when you do fight them, it's kind of intense and special, rather than them just becoming like cannon fodder, where you've fought them so many times, you're not even afraid of them anymore. It's not that interesting. They showed a lot of restraint with the werewolves and the lichens, and I'm so glad they did that, because it kept the game grounded. Because you still had the human element being the prevalent feature of the game, and I love that about it. But yeah, you basically just move through the game, cover fire, cover, moving through the cities and interesting environments. You're in old airships, and it's all because of the time frame and the alternate history. Everything looks really cool. You eventually meet Nikola Tesla, and so he's kind of like your Q, like your James Bond guy that gives you gadgets and stuff like that. That's kind of cool. So yeah, it's just a really, I could not believe how good this game was, and it got like low, like I think it got like a 6 out of 10 or something like that from IGN back in the day, and I don't know how you could play this game and give it that low. It's just, everything about it I thought was so well done. It's such a shame. I feel bad for the team, because you can kind of tell that they felt like Hey, thanks for listening to this clip of my podcast. I publish new episodes on the last Friday of every month at 12:45 p.m. PST for all premium members of my Patreon. My name is Cooper Bibo. I'm an actor, writer, and producer of film, television, and video games. Head to patreon.com/Cooper Bibo. You can sign up for free, get access to my blog, or you can toss me a few dollars if you want to support me and get special bonuses like this very podcast, or you can subscribe to my YouTube. You'll continue to get free clips and a brand new video every single Wednesday. So whether you like to watch, listen, or read, I've got something for everyone. I've also got a video game called Billy Saves the World. Please check that out on Steam right now. I've got movie projects in the works. I update all of that stuff in Discord all of the time. Again, the basic channels are free to join. Just head to patreon.com/Cooper Bibo to get access. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next clip.